startup founders struggle to land their first B2B clients. They have people interested, but they don't really know why they are struggling to move the conversation forward. As one founder told me once, things go from hot to cold very quickly. Others struggle to deal with the impact that bringing on more B2B clients will have on their businesses. And how do you think about making the most of the relationship that you have with existing clients so that you can strengthen your operation and be ready for the influx of clients that will come next? So this is what we are going to talk about in this episode. But first, I'm taking this moment to celebrate running Athena Leaders for 4 years. And of course, this wonderful podcast, The Mary Poppins of Startups, for 2 years. When I first launched the podcast 2 years ago, I honestly didn't know that I would still be here, and not just here present with you, but having so much fun. And as a founder and an entrepreneur, I've been guilty so many times of not talking about my achievements, or even just celebrating my life and celebrating the great thing that happens, especially when we start looking at the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. So I want to do something that I've never done before, which is to give myself a tap on the back live and just say thank you to all of my viewers, my supporters, and absolutely everybody that have helped me to be here on the journey, as I love turning my own life into a playground and also helping others to do the same. Welcome to the Mary Poppins of Startups live show. I'm Nelly Makangu from Athena Leaders. As a tech consultant and startup advisor, I will answer live the burning questions that you have on your journey to Series A+. Subscribe and tune in every week for top tips and to meet amazing guests, startup founders, investors, and more. More importantly, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So as I've mentioned, this special episode is really about helping startup founders on their journey to mastering their understanding of the B2B clients to strengthen their organization as they grow. And as it's a special episode, I'm turning the table and changing the format. I've brought a fantastic startup founder to interview me. So Carole Constant is a TEDx speaker on skills trainings and the founder of Bemensa. After a long career in corporate, Carole founded Bemensa to modernize employee skills profiling and increase job satisfaction. So we talk about startup challenges a lot on this show, but check this out. Bemensa's beginning were not really easy, as Carole has to take developers to court. The whole project was on standby for 2 years. Now, finally, she's piloting a software with a major bank, and there's a lot of interesting things happening. So watch this space, because I'm pretty sure that we are bringing Carole back, not just as an interviewee, but to go deep and understand exactly what happened with the developers and how was her journey. But for now, Carole, welcome to the Mary Poppins of Startups live show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so happy. And first of all, congratulations. It's amazing what you are achieving. And well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you want me to just start asking you questions?
It's your show today. Go for it.
Okay. So I'm in control. Okay, so I decided I'm going to take the opportunity to kind of do a consultation with you. Like in a way that people can identify if they're going through the same process. So B2B clients, they are very specific. It's not the same B2C than B2B. And in B2B, I imagine we are also including B2G, government, so all kind of
Yes.
non B2C clients. Yeah. So in your opinion, because you've been doing this for a very long time, and I've seen you live in a
Thank
consultation,
you.
I really enjoyed. What are the stages? So what are the stages to get to that point to be prepared for B2B customers?
Yes, that's a really, really good question. Because, of course, when we start looking at the very early stage and getting your first client, it's even more of a headache, because you also need to nurture the relationship, do all of the sales aspects of that. And you need to be ready for that. So how are you attracting clients to come to you? How are they finding you? How much information do you have online? And one of the key things, of course, this session is not so much about sales, but there's a great episode of channel where we talk about hacking growth and we talk about bootstrapping. one of the key strategies also personal branding, right? So there's a lot of people who are not public facing, because quite frankly, when I started my business, I hated anything to do with videos and even just Instagram in general. But you kind of have to, people need to know you. So you don't have the full force of a marketing or sales company or department coming after you. So anything that makes you stand out as an individual, sharing your opinions or your thoughts online so people can discover not just the product, but also who you are as a person is very important. So there's a lot of different strategies that you can use to get your first clients. As I've said, this session is not so much about that. But one of the key things I really wanted to talk about, and in terms of getting ready, is what do you need to think about in your startup or to handle the conversation better, right? So for me, the beginning, one of the things that I always see a lot is the assumptions that people have. There's this the one of the most famous assumption, in my opinion, is that thinking for going for a big client means that they have the resources to use your product. That's not always true. Sometimes that you believe that they might have a lot of people, they have thousands of people working for them, but the department you might be interfacing with might only have maybe less than 10 people, and they also have their own priorities. You might think that your product is simple to use, is maybe they just coming onto my app, right? Or maybe we only just doing this tiny part. But, or you think, actually, the other thing I hear a lot as well, they don't need to install everything, so it makes the process easy. But if you don't check those assumptions with the clients, it will stall your sales process eventually, or it will harm yourself when you start working with them, because you will need to figure out the answer as you're running. So that's another issue. So it's really important to check what kind of assumptions that you're making with them. And then for me, the most important thing to do as well is to start thinking a little bit about what is it that, what is their journey? Who are they, right? Really fall in love with them to understand who they are, how they operate. You might not know them exactly, but what are some of the challenges that you'll have in the industry? The more you have those kind of typical questions that they might ask, and the more you have some answers, remember, your product might not be fully complete to handle absolutely everything, right? You will have gaps because we are talking about early stage or maybe pre-seed or even seed development at that point. But the more you can have answers to tough questions, the better or smoother the sales process will go. So the reason why I say that is I did a consultation a while back, and I was working with a woman who wanted to launch a VR headset. She was using VR technology as part of some of a solution to have the hospitality industry. But now, when I started talking to her, try to understand what was going on, there were so many different challenges that she was going through, right? There was a lot of people interested, and she had a lot of leads. So that's good, because some people don't even get people running to you. But the issue she had was that she was struggling to continue to go beyond 2 conversations. And when I pretended to be a client, so we had a bit of a scenario where I would be the client, and then she was answering the question. We were like a fake sales call. I understood very quickly that she didn't spend the time to think about them. So she knew what she was doing, and the product, honestly, I'm still in love with it, but she didn't think about other things. And those are the kind of questions I always get people to think about, regardless of your stage, whenever you're interacting with a client. So typical things might be things like, for example, which stage are they? Is it a new technology for them? If it is a new technology, even if they have a technology department, they will need to adapt. But most of the time, we don't think about that until we've already started talking to the clients. But if you already think about entering in the, for example, the hospitality industry, you can have an idea, especially at which stage you're entering, and how often people will use technology or an app or a tablet as part of running their operations. And if that's the case, then what does it actually mean for them? So would they have to, would you even support them in terms of them ramping up? So there's a lot of different questions there, and you think about, but being prepared early by going through the entire journey, and we can talk a bit about that if you're interested as well, will help you to think ahead and use that knowledge to drive the sales conversation that make you sound actually as if you've known them for a long time.
Yes, I think that one key factor what you were mentioning is time. So most people are in a hurry, so they got the big client, the big customer, and they want to grab everything quickly. And for my own experience, I'm doing a pilot, as you know very well, and we've been 3 months just preparing and how to start. So you need to look at every single detail. I believe that you are 100% right in there, and ask many questions. There are so many questions that you need to look into before we start working with them. Okay. There's another question regarding what you were just saying now, and it is, so on the one hand we have the full package, to give them the full package to see the benefits, how to integrate what your software solution to what they already have, and help them even in, as you say, in small little things, like for example, we were talking even the emails that will be sent to the staff. How's it going to be from your account, from ours? What are we going to say? Let's not repeat information. Just little things that you don't even consider first. And another aspect which is really important, it is this the technical due diligence. So can you tell us a little bit more in that sense, please? Maybe.
Yes, that's a very good question. Uh, that, especially now, one thing that's it's happening a lot more is that we've moved away from the world where people really needed to install something, right? At least on individual computers. You might still install in servers, but even now, it's a lot of the applications are coming out. People are not doing that, and if they do, they are very depending on obviously whatever your platform is. People are still doing that, but because people are not installing, sometimes we're forgetting that we actually build that we also need to look under the hoods to see how we are going to integrate with others. So when we look at the technical due diligence, there are so many things that you need to bear in mind in terms of what are the level of requirements that they have. As you know, depending on how corporate an organization is, they might have a long list of approval before they can start using your software. So this is one of the questions that as part of the sales discussion you need to ask. And why I say that is that there are people, I've worked with people where they flew in because the idea was really great. I mean, the client was like, oh my God, I love this. I know there's some limitation on your platform, but that's fine. We know you're going to grow. But we can't start using you for the next 6 months or 7 months or so, right? And that's why they shocked, because they thought we've landed this client, the sales conversation went quickly, because sometimes it does happen even if it's slower in the B2B, but you get to the point where you realize that there is so many things on their side. So those are the questions you need to ask before. So things that you need to bear in mind is, even if they are going to do a very gentle integration, so that the information on some information on their platform goes on your platform, or maybe if they want to use single sign-on, so that their team, they will only use the same password and the same username and password that they are currently using to log into their company profile. So for example, Athena Leaders, but we want our clients to use the same when I go to Bemensa, my employees, for example, so that they don't have to remember a different password. So you need to ask them. It's a very simple question. You need to ask them, how will that work? What are their protocols? Is there anything that you will need to change on your side to make that happen? Or depending on the way you've built your platform, you already got single sign-on and set up. Some people will request that, some people don't, depending again on which stage you are. And some, especially, I believe that a lot of the big clients that come as first customers tend to be more lenient, even if they know that it might be a pain, but they might not ask that. But again, you don't know until you get there. If you need to integrate with them, even the basic integration in terms of sending data between your two platforms will still require time. So you might have to do something for them, which is fine. I'm sure you will find a way and you will not jump into that because it benefits you. But what about the company? Oh, I worked on so many clients. I was working with one of the clients, and not only we had to integrate with them, but we also had to get data from them. And you don't believe how much time it takes, even if you give them everything, how much time it takes for them to find the data. And when they are going to find the data, how are you supporting them to make sure that they understand exactly what to send to you? The data won't come the way you expect. let's just be honest. You will need to do something to either clean the data, to look to it, to transform it. But again, those are things that you need to be aware of. So as you can see already, those are just two kind of basic things that a lot of people don't think about. And if they have to do any development work, even if we are talking integration or API work, anything very that we might say is basic, but they also have their own roadmap, their own portfolio, their own office politics, right? So you need to understand where you will fall in their list of priorities. So which is why, even if you've kind of already got the contract approved and everything, but you want to start running fast, you might slow down because of that. But the earlier you ask this kind of question in terms of, when can you start bringing the technical people on the call to have those kind of questions? The IT people, sometimes that you need an IT approval and they will go through so many other things. GDPR, especially if you're targeting Europe, is a big thing. And you might think your platform is GDPR compliant, but how did you test it and how did you make sure of that, right? If you are using open source or third-party components in your platform, that's another thing to bear in mind, because those components will have certain rules, especially on how to use data. Now, you will have to also share some of that information depending on the level of technical due diligence that you will have the company, so that they know how the data that you are using is being used, and if it leaves your platform and how that is being used as well. So those are very, very simple things that you need to bear in mind. Of course, we do have cybersecurity, protection, and data, but it goes back to this idea of preparing yourself, but you might by having the questions ready. Now, going back to something that Carole, you said earlier, was startups are short on time, and that is true. So which is why I prefer to start with questions, even if we don't have the knowledge or the time to answer the questions, right? This is a bit of my my project management hat that comes in, because obviously I started as a software engineer and then I moved into leadership and management and everything. And one of the things I've always done, even before I got into the startup world fully, I would rather be prepared by knowing what I don't know and having a list of questions than not knowing that. So even if I don't have the time to go through all of the answers, so let's say you are at the beginning and it's your first client, this time will come where this question will be important. So what you do, if you do have a list of questions, that you can start asking them in your first interaction as part of the sales process, especially when you build a relationship with the first person that you are interacting with. And then on the side, whenever you have time, do get your contact book out and find people, technical experts, if you have a CTO advisor or whoever it is, where you can really start having those kind of conversation and start getting the answer. So that will take some of the pressure from you. But the worst you can do is not to even ask. And one thing that we are going to do, of course, is also get some of the questions that we've mentioned onto our website to give you a bit of a head start.
Perfect. And I just want to say that we are not trying to scare anyone. It is all doable. It is just that it's step by step. And once you have done it a few times, it becomes clearer. But for example, when I started this pilot that I'm running, and my advantage is I work in corporate, so I know how it is. All these departments, all that you were telling, all this process that is time consuming. It's not that they are not interested. It's just that it goes very, very slow. You have to think of them as dinosaurs sometimes. Yeah, they go very slowly. And as you said, you just need to be prepared and have everything in place. So then my next question is, I am doing a pilot, and I would like to know, for pilot setup for success, what will be the key points that you will say you cannot miss this, please?
For me, number one is communication. It doesn't matter how well or bad things are going. One of the things that I've seen time and time again that save a relationship is being able to communicate, and to communicate early, to be transparent about what is going on. So for me, that is very important. But of course, when you have a pilot, you want to be able to be a scribe, because you have a great opportunity, even because what I love about pilots, it helps you to test your platform, test your processes, but it's actually a great way to ask questions as well, because you might end up being in contact with other people that you might not speak a lot about. And as a founder, you already have the blueprint, right? The roadmap of where you want to take your product. So now imagine that if you have some of your target customers using your product, you can also use that as an opportunity in terms of different question or feedback or follow-up and stuff like that to understand what else can you put on the platform. So for me, the first thing when you start with a pilot, again, first of all, congratulations and appreciate the fact that you have a client that wants to do that, because that is a big deal, right? So again, going back to all of this can sound scary, but if you're already at that stage, you've already answered quite a few of the questions on the list. So the pilot is exactly the same. The first one might not be perfect, but again, as I've said before, I see a lot of the big clients that work on the first pilot with the startups tend to be a little bit more relaxed, right? So that's good. Again, this is why the communication, being very honest about them about issues, can really help. The second thing is make sure that you have a plan, even if it's a high-level plan of what you want to achieve. So the pilot is great. We know the first thing, we have clients, they come on our platform, they start using that. But what else do you want to achieve? What are the metrics that you will track during that time, right? So whether we're talking about how often they log into your platform, if they have to download certain things, whatever it is, but it's good to have a clear metrics that you track daily. Don't wait until the end of the pilot to look at the data you gathered, because by the time you're at the end of the pilot, you might not be able to change course halfway. So for example, if it's a pilot that runs for 2 months or 3 months, and you see that the usage on your platform is quite high at the beginning, that's a great indication that they like it. But it also could be an indication that HR has been screaming about it. But then after a couple of weeks or three weeks, it starts coming down. Then the question is, why is it going down, right? Why are people not using it? And then if you already have an idea up front, or you can even use that as an opportunity to have conversations and ask them what is going on in the company, why are people not using it? Because if people are only using a platform because someone is shouting at them, the likelihood that they might want to sign after the pilot, or let's say after the first or 2 years, goes low, because it shows that there's not an interest from the individual employee level, but there's a push from the HR level. So it's great to be able to get that feedback. And again, if it's even possible to, as part of the pilot, I've done that before, but again, it depends on who you're working with. You can even have I don't like the word committee, a steering group, probably better than committee, because committee talks about a lot of meetings and nothing happens. But I love to have a working group as well. So the working group shouldn't just have management, because management, yes, they know what is going on. But if your platform, like for example, for yours, Carole, is about employees and skill profiling, that impacts individual managers, but it also impacts the employees. So if you have a steering groups where, again, you don't have to speak to them a lot, you can even use a like Slack or anything that's asynchronous, so they can put regular feedback, or just even just 15 minutes chat where you bring people on board and says, okay, we're gonna play this little game. What do you like? What you don't like? What are you using it? I've seen that you use it a lot or not. What happened? Get those kind of feedback set. But of course, if you haven't thought about that at the beginning and how you're going to handle that, or even have that as part of your plan for something that you have to handle in the future, then you might lose that opportunity. The next bit about the pilot is to remember that you are building a relationship with potentially one of the customers that might stay with you long enough. Because what I love about first-time clients, they are very patient, and if they love a product, and again, in B2B, investing in changing the culture and bringing a new tool gives you more of a chance of staying there for long, which is great. So you want to make sure that they also have a voice, right? So how do you make them feel part of your company, even if they're not there, in terms of a strong promoter? Again, I'm not talking about spending so much money on expensive things, but it's really about making them feel like they're heard, making sure that you are thanking them for their time, making sure that you are providing an update on what is going on in your company, and how the pilot has actually helped you the direction of the company. Because people like to know that they've helped, even if it's something like we were thinking about going with these features on our roadmap, but after working with you, we've decided that it might not be important. For you as a founder, there's 10,000 things going on in your head, and you think it's not that important. But for someone who's given you the time, just get that message thinking, okay, I'm glad that they found out about it. And again, it gives them another opportunity to even engage with them and keep talking about them. The other thing as well is to think a little bit about how are you going to tell the world what you're doing. And of course, it depends on the client. Sometimes you might be in a relationship with a client where you can't name them directly and really talk in detail about what they do in a way that they are identifiable. But it doesn't mean that you cannot talk about anything that's happening in the pilot. So I know he's asking more because, as you said before, time is not always on your side. But if you have someone that can support on your social media to talk about certain aspects of the pilot, then talk about it. And it can even be just from a reflection of the team, not from a reflection of the client, because you might not, you're still going to that relationship. You don't want to name them, you don't want to upset them, but you can talk about your own reflection as a founder and says, oh, we put our platform live and we realized that from our data, a lot of people love this feature. And then you take a screenshot of that feature, you put it on social media. What it does is it creates that fear of missing out from other people thinking, what is that feature? We never heard about it. What is it? And it's another way of you not going to in an active sales mode, but letting the world know, and anybody else that's checking you out, they will know what is going on. So this is just one example. There's many things that we can talk about, depending on the platform. But for me, so whenever I'm working with a client, I always think about, or if we go into another client, what is it that we've built already that we can start sharing to the world? We don't have to talk about it every week, even if it's once or a couple of times a month. If you can do it more, great. But working with a client provides you content. And again, when we talk about social media, especially for people who are time poor, one of the great way I create content, it can just be on my day-to-day experiences, like Carole posted about you and I having coffee. That is content. And other people will see about the mastermind and all of those kind of things. So that is a great way of thinking about, as part of the pilot, we're generating a lot of things. How can we use that for content? So the last thing I will say in terms of the pilot is also to bear in mind that clients will be asking for things. Clients always ask for more, which is great because the more they ask for certain things, it shows that they are excited, they love what you do. They look at their own use cases and what they do, identify the gaps, and they will say, okay, we need X, Y, Z. That's fine. But as a founder, you now have another problem, feature requests. So how are you going to make it easier for clients to send their feature requests to you? And bear in mind that when we're talking about B2B, your client is not just the person who signed the check or the manager or who you're working with. We're talking about everybody else. So you might have one client and you have 100 seats or 200 seats or more because they are using your platform for licenses. How are you making it easier for those that are using your software day to day? So the employees, how are you going to make it easier for them to send their features requests to you? And how are you continuing the conversation and engaging with people, even at that lower level of feature request, because you might not be able to handle everything straight away. You will not be able to do that. And I wouldn't advise doing that either. But again, it goes back to people knowing that they've been heard and knowing that whatever that is bothering them now is something that the company will fix in the future. So again, that's why I talk about thinking about the entire journey, because when you start thinking about the entire journey, before you sell, when you're starting having those discussions, what happens when we install, after install, when they start using it, and of course, when you also leave the company.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to do a brief summary of what you say because you touched on points that are really important. So first of all, you said feedback, communication, and data analysis. I think that your mind and mine, in that sense, are very similar in the sense of data is gold, it's a treasure, and you need to get as much as possible. These listening skills. You listen to what people say and what people don't say, and also to all the data that you get, that is huge, and you need to be able to see which ones are useful for you at what stage. Then the second point is to build alliances. And for me, for example, in my case, I want my pilot to be successful for me, but also because of the HR director that is giving me this opportunity. I want that it, for she's so happy about it, that it's really helping her in her career up, because it's giving me a chance, and I want to repay, and I'm going to do as much as I can. And I guess more people are also in this same situation. Then how to share on social media? Well, I think here I will also need help from some of my friends, and some of my friends that are listening as well. So yes, marketing is vital. And then what you were saying, number four, so clients ask for more, always more features and features requests. And here we need to remember that we are in B2B, but let's not forget B2B to C. So we have the company and we have the users, which are the employees, and we need to listen to both. And your last point was that one, yes? And it does, again, is extremely important. I go with the pilot with this idea of I'm going to polish. It's like I have something there, but I'm going to mold it, because many times you think, oh, this is what they're going to like the most. And even I've done alpha testing, beta testing, and all the testings, but the pilot is different. So yes, you need to be flexible, and I couldn't agree more with you there.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's a wonderful summary. And I'm glad that you're actually also going through those stages at the moment with your pilot.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to. And then so you were for example, let's talk about do you want to talk about how to set up this delivery, or is something that with the pilot is uncovered? Would you like to add something more about this area?
Yeah, I guess one of when if you bring in delivery in this, one of the things I can say about that is the pilot actually is a great way of understanding your own operation and your own journey. As I said before, there is the customer journey, and there's your own. And in fact, one of the tips that I forgot to mention earlier, which just came back to me now, when you're looking at the customer journey, right? So now there's a lot of tools you can do it online, but I'm a big fan of post-it notes to begin with before you go into this super long spreadsheet of problems, of questions, things like that. And it's a good idea to put the entire journey from sales to ending the customer, which means that the customer has left your company, right? So it's say if you've installed and you've been working with them for 4 years, but one day they will end. We don't want that, but have that. And again, going back to what we said a couple of times, you don't have to have all of the answers straight away. You want to be able to answer just what you need to get you to the next step, but be aware of what comes up next. So one of the things that I will say when it comes to delivery, if you have the customer journey, then do the delivery journey that maps every single stage of the customer journey. Again, you start very high level, and then you can break them up into a lot more details, but that will help you to really understand how are you supporting them. And I think, Carole, you said something earlier about what you're doing with Bemensa, which was very interesting as well, because some people might think it's details, but it's very important. What kind of emails are we going to send? It's when you look at the scale of what you need to do as a founder, that looks quite tiny, but it goes into something from the user perspective. Bear in mind that they are really excited about working with Bemensa. For them, those emails, it's really what represents, it's a bit like Carole walked into the building, Carole and the team, of course, walked into the building, and they're holding them by the hands and helping them navigate getting onto the platform. So if you have a journey, even if it's a very rough journey, and we improving it as you're going along, having that will help you when you start to go into the pilot and also fine tune for later. So, for example, some people might not have. For example, I work with some clients, and as we are doing the journey bit and obviously the emails, sometimes you have to send the emails, but you just don't have the time to write the emails because we had so many other things. We also were finishing the platform. But we had a card that says we have to write the emails, which meant that as we were coming, and obviously always looking at least 2 or 3 steps in advance, we're like, oh, there's this thing that we need to do. Let's do it, right? But if you don't have that, you don't really know. The other thing as well, the reason why I say to map them out, when you start running out of time because you have so many things to do, if you've mapped things out, you can start thinking about what is my 80/20? How can I not go to perfection, even if I want to? I mean, I love perfection, but there are times as part of your delivery where things are just beyond your capabilities at the moment. So the question is, what is that you can do? Maybe if you wanted to send 5 emails, maybe you send 4, right? Or whatever it is that you can do to kind of change, tweak things a bit, where you're not really affecting the quality, but you are reducing the amount of work that you are doing. And equally, if you go on the other side, once you have that, the idea of this is how we're going to deliver during the pilot, you've refined it during the pilot. After the pilot, you might want to bring multiple customers on the platform. At that point, you start looking at where did you struggle as part of the delivery and focus on those points. Again, working in startups, for me, prioritizing is something that I have to do every single day. You need to prioritize because time is of the essence. So if you prioritize the areas, those were things where as part of the pilot, we got certain types of feedback or people ask a lot of questions. How do we save our time? By maybe having an FAQ, by giving them, maybe training them in another way so that we can save time, that we can invest something somewhere else. But it goes back to having that idea. And I know some people say, oh, you talk a lot about planning or we don't have time. But I always say, if you don't have time to plan, just a huge, paper on the wall, whether it's on whiteboard, Miro, what it is, put the journey high level and then use stickers and markers to know what are the bits that are struggling, what are the bits that are on fire. So that when you prioritize visually, you can see, says, okay, for the next 2 weeks, we need to sort this out, because if we sort this out, it means that we save time to do something else. It means that we're improving the communication and so much more. So I think it's really important that before you start going down the level of which tools do I need to use for this, bringing on a new tool means, I'm a tools person, I love tools, but bringing on a new tool means spending time understanding the tool, training the team on the tool, and that takes more time. But if you use the basic, depending on the stage of your platform, use the tools that fits the stage of your platform, and so that you can move quickly, whilst at the same time giving time for the team to learn new tools to move forward. So that's why I think it's important to have a very high level view of what is the customer journey, what is my operation journey. And one more thing I'll add to that, I keep on saying one more thing, I sound like Columbo now. One more thing I will add to that as well is having those journey as well can help you to validate what you think was important, and also simplified, because you want to have a lot of touch points with the clients when you sell, but when they start using your platform, you want to have quality touch points with the clients. The more things that can be automated or done quickly, the less there is an opportunity for you to make a mistake. So if you have to always send an email and you have to do it manually because someone's signing on to certain things, or maybe there's a trigger that you have to do manually, there will be days where you will forget, and that will affect the experience. So this is a very simple case, a very simple example. But as you start working with your clients, you can, and looking at your map and your post-it notes and the way you run your operations, then you can start thinking about what is it that you've, how can you simplify certain things? What can you automate? What can you simplify? And again, you don't have to do it straight away, but think about the fact that the more clients will come on your platform, the more you will drawn in, because you become an account manager, in addition to all of the hats that you're already wearing, or until you can grow the team anyway.
Yes, exactly. What you were saying, I was just thinking that it's so important, the team, your team, the team you work with, because it's impossible. As a startup founder, we think of the one person, but when you get to B2B, it's key, it's crucial that you have the right people with you and going with you on this journey, because it's a long term. As we saw, it's not just a matter of weeks, it's months. And yes, it's extremely important. And this takes me to my next question, which is scaling. So imagine we are successful, we are, we believe we are ready. Help us.
Well, you've got to that stage, and again, congratulations is amazing. You finally got you've done the pilot, you have your first few clients. Now you're getting more headaches, or different types of headaches, because all those clients, especially, um, the downside of being nice and lovely to clients is that they really fall in love with you and they love working with you. But sometimes you just don't have the time to give everybody the same level of dedicated interest. When there were one or two, is different when you have now, five or more. So how do you do that? So that's when you start thinking about whether, if you've scaled the team or you have a larger team, how do you look at different roles where you might not have an account manager per se, because maybe people are more focused on a version of marketing sales, but it doesn't really matter. You need to have someone who's responsible for the relationship and the interaction with the clients, and then maybe someone else who will look at the delivery. So that it goes back to just the same bit I've said a lot about the operation. And if you're going to scale, that's when you really bring it down to another level, and you start really start going into moving you as a founder as the only person that keep their eyes on the pulse of everything else, and bring other people on that as well. So some of the things that I will say, again, I don't like using that word a lot. Governance, project governance can sound like it's even company governance can sound like a dirty word. But I believe, and I'm in love with processes, as long as it's just enough to keep us going in the right way and not turn us into a mini version of corporate and is slowing us down. So there is a big difference between putting together processes in a company so that you can move faster and understanding issues, rather than not having anything. So as you scale, sadly, you need to bring on more processes. And I would like to believe that some of it starting happening when you are piloting, but you definitely need that. Scaling means more people that might not have been with you as part of your team when you are doing the pilot, so that they don't have the full history. So when you bring them on board, what does it mean? Scaling means more clients, and more other clients might not be as lenient and patient as the one before. So as I said before, if you've mapped out the journey and you find the bits of the operation that is resources intensive, whether it's you or someone else, for any reason, that's the time where a lot of people spend time on it. That is where you want to start looking at it from a different perspective. What can we do to change it? How can you simplify it? And if there is nothing you can do and you need to bring someone else to handle that, even on a part-time contract basis, then that's what you need to do. So, but then for me, the most important thing is to really look at how are we running or growing as a company. Because when we start looking at customer experience and customer satisfaction, I genuinely believe that a big part of that is also the employee and the internal satisfaction. The more your people feel empowered to take decision, or the more you have a great culture, that is also felt on the customer side. So as you scale, it's not just all eyes on the client, it's also all eyes on how can better and deliver better. Because the lot of negative conflicts that you have will affect the way you deliver. If there's not leadership as the company is growing, that will affect the way people deliver. If you work remotely, which is absolutely fine, I love remote work. I'm a big push promoter of remote work, but there is a way of doing remote that works. Asynchronous communication is very important. Some people don't really know how to do that. My favorite story is, when people send me a message and says, "Hey," this is great. Now I'm online. All I have is, "Hey, what do I do next?" I have to wait for you to say, "Hey, great. Well, how are you today?" And then I'm like, "Great. How about sending me a message that says, 'Hey, hi, how are you? I just wanted to check that you're okay.'" At least I know that this message is meant for us to just have a chat and connect, which again is really important. But I don't have that sense and that feeling that I have to wait for something else to come. And if you are asking someone a question or working with contractors, the more information that you can say, even if they don't respond at the same time because it's different time zone or they're working on something else, if you give them a full question and the context, and I do that a lot with some of the people on my team. Sometimes, the Slack will pop up and it's like 90, 90, 90, 90. I'm just asking you a question, whether it's like I record a video, send them to them, and says, this is the question I have, this is the context, this is the whether it's the Trello card or the Slack card that has all of the information. That's fine. They won't respond to me straight away because we are asynchronous, but when they have the time to look into that and they respond to me, I know that they've done the full research because they had the full context. So again, when you start going back on working as a team and scaling as a team, I know again it goes back scaling the clients. I know it's for us, but if I waste my time waiting for people to respond to me or waiting for them to come live to go on a meeting that could have been answered by me giving them context, how much time am I wasting that I could have put into improving my operation with the clients, right? So this is why when you start scaling, really think about that. But one of the things I will also mention, the more clients you have, the more you will be pushed in different directions. So be careful, because as much as I said, you have to listen, you are the owner and the leader of your own product. So if someone wants something that is not aligned to you, what do you do? I've had a situation where I was hired by a company because it was a kind of a tense situation. They built a client, and one of the earliest clients had a different build, like we say. So it's kind of like a different version of the software because they adapted just for them, which was not, some of it wasn't relevant for other people, for let's say 90% or 99% of the other clients. So they were isolated on their own, but as a company, you have a reputation as a contract. They were forced into the situation where they have to build and continue improving that feature because they built something to please an early client, which again, it's not a judgment, because sometimes you have to do what you have to do to bring the money in the company and survive as a startup, but it can also affect you. So bearing that in mind, it will also help you continue to grow in a different way, and avoid this type of issues, or at least if these issues happen, have it on your card as something I need to work on later, as a technical debt or an organizational debt that I need to go and fix. So you need to know where you want to take your product and whether the customers that you have and as you are scaling are helping you to go there, or they are pushing you in a situation that you don't want to go to. And actually, very quickly, I'll read out some of the comments. We had one that says a happy anniversary. Thank you to Claudia Guerrero. You are awesome, Carol. You are. And another one, amazing tips, Niley. We had a comment from Naomi Rose. Loving this conversation. I have a question. Setting up a pilot is a critical milestone for us. What key elements should we consider to ensure it serves as a springboard for a broader adoption by B2B clients? So yeah, this is a great question, by the way. And we did cover some of this already. So if you want to go back and listen to some of the things that you've mentioned. But again, going back very quickly, for me, if I have to pick that one tip, which I know that people are timeful and they don't really have, if you really want to improve the adoption of future clients, you need to know what is currently happening and plan it, even if you don't have all of the details. So having a high-level mirror board or spreadsheet or something like that, where you map the journey of the clients, you map the journey of what you're doing to the pilot, highlight the red areas, right? What didn't go so well? What can we improve on? And then, so when you go into the next stage of simplifying and automating, which you might not automate straight away, just try to do it maybe 2 or 3 times, depending on, again, your use case. But that will really help you to understand the issues that people have, so that the next client get an even more awesome experience from you. And again, from Claudia, we had a comment, amazing tips on remote work. Thank you. Thanks, Claudia, Egila, and Naomi. If anyone else have any questions or any comments, do feel free to ask.
I wanted to ask you one more question, but I don't know if we have time.
Oh, we can be last question. I'll give you one more question, Carole. Let's do it.
Okay, so while somebody else asks a question, I just wanted to know, we have seen all this, it's like a mountain that we have to climb, it's like, wow, so much to do. So founders burnout. So it is very, very real. I imagine you have seen it happening again and again. So can you give us some of the red flags that we have to look, or what are some of the advice that you will give us regarding burnout?
Yeah. I think, sadly, one of the things that, when I have conversations, especially with aspiring entrepreneurs, and I talk about this subject, sometimes you have to keep going, even if you burnt out because of where you are. But I think it's important to also know when to switch off, right? This is something that to me took me a long time to learn to do, because even in burnout I will try and push myself as much as I can, and I see so many founders that do that. But sometimes you kind of live on autopilot and pushing yourself because you are hitting a certain milestone. But if you do that, then how do you cope with that? I think as a founder, I would say a few tips for me would be: surround yourself with people that will help you. Honestly, Carol, our mastermind is a big help. We meet once a week. We don't have to all be there once a week. And some weeks we can't because there is a call, there's an emergency, there's something else. But knowing that we are there and there is a WhatsApp chat where we keep each other motivated, I think for me is such an important thing. And also being able to tell people that you are burnt out or you don't feel very confident. I've done that sometimes where I spoke to another founder and I'm like, I'm trying this strategy, this is not working, and I'm just burnt out, or I'm just not mentally there, just to help you to keep going. The second thing I will also say when it comes to burnout is, you know, make sure that you have things in your life that is not, that you will never compromise on, and is there for you. And honestly, this is a topic that I can talk about for another hour, so I'll try to wrap up very quickly. When you work as an entrepreneur, and for me, even when before I started my business, I used to work really hard and I used to do long hours in my job, and then after that I was always running a non-profit organization, be presidents here and there, running this group. And so it was great because I love serving my community, and I learned a lot of skill sets. I was an entrepreneur even before being paid to be an entrepreneur. But one thing that for me was always important were the key things that I need to survive. And many people are aware of that, but those things move on the side because we're busy. Yet when they move on the side, the further they move, when you start going low, you're completely out. So if you think about the fact that we have to eat every day, looking after your mental health is not a secondary thing, is a thing that happens every day. Maybe not the same amount of food you will have every day, so you might not invest on your mental health every day, but the work that you do on the good days sustain you for on the bad days. Again, I'm not going to go into too deep into that. So for me, for example, it will be the fact that I always go to the gym in the morning, and sometimes I work out at 6 in the morning, or sometimes at 7 in the morning, and I might work before I go to the gym or work as soon as I come back. It doesn't matter, but the gym needs to happen. So what's the reason why I say it's important to do those on a good day is I've built certain habits in terms of journaling, going to the gym, talking to people and things like that, so that when I start going into the darkness, which happens, and I'm definitely going to be very open here and says to me, it happens at least once every year. When you go into a very, very dark place where you're wondering what is the point of existence and what is the point of running this business, what is the point of running the podcast, what is the point of waking up in the morning, even things that you love start irritating you. And that's actually another sign for me. When small things that I like, even just chocolate, start becoming annoying, so I know I'm getting close to burnout. But because I've got certain habits, I try to continue with them. I might, allow myself time to not go to the gym maybe 2 or 3 times in a week, but I know that I've built certain habits that helps me to move forward until I can get to the point where I need to crash, right? So I will do those things every day. I have a tendency to isolate myself when I'm down, and I know that. So what I'll do, making sure that every week there are key people that I see on my work in a co-working space and not in my house. So it's really important to understand how you function, because the advice I'm sharing is how I function. So when I work with people and I advise on this, I spend time to understand how they function, so that when things are good, they really build those habits and make them part of their lives. When they start going down, they won't be able to sustain it to the same level. That's okay. They have enough of those that keep them going. More importantly, be aware of when you need some TLC. You need love, comfort and just looking after yourself. As an entrepreneur, your job is to constantly be worried, and being worried is actually something that we do a lot, that you don't even realize that you have a lot of things racing through your mind. But as a human being, we were not designed to spend so much time with worry in our heads. So it's important to build downtime. So for me, one of my I'm not gonna compromise on is definitely exercise, because I know that compromising on that will have a negative impact on my mental health. And the second, when I go on holiday, it took me a long time to learn, but I do have a few days, key days, or even if it's not a week because it's too long, but those are the days I'm gonna have quality time with quality people in my lives. I make sure that I hit those days, right? And yes, so again, this is just very, very, very quick. But I think for me, the most important thing is understand yourself on a good day, what really helps you to keep going, get into the habits of doing that when you're well, so that when you are burnt out, you have things you can rely on until you can get the space to switch off, maybe speak to someone, coaching, whatever it needs. But for me, I think it's important that as much as we recognize burnout, I like to recognize the fact that as founders, there are times where we have to survive with burnout. So how do we do that? And how do you make sure that that time is as short as possible, so that you switch off and get the help you need so you can go back to your 100%?
Fantastic, excellent points, and thank you for sharing your personal experience. I'm pretty sure that many people feel the same as you, because yeah, this is the world nowadays, and especially for founders and entrepreneurs. Yes. Okay, so I'm not too sure about the time. If you want to add something else, or how do we wrap it up?
No, well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you to the listeners, and also thank you to you, Carole, for being such an amazing interviewer. And before we go, two things. One, Carole, I'm going to ask you to let people know how they can find out more about you as well, because as I said before, this is only a tiny bite of you getting to know Carole as she's coming back on the podcast. I haven't even told her yet, but I know she's coming back. So we need to sort that out later. But for anybody who loved this episode, if there's anything that resonates with you, any question that you have, let us know. Find me on LinkedIn, DM me. I put a lot of contents on social media, and also I will have a written out version of this episode and many tips, some of the questions that you need to bear in mind, and how to create that wall that I mentioned as well. So eventually I will have this type of material on my website for you to go and find. So if there's anything you need now, please do reach out to me so that I prioritize, as I said, I prioritize what you want so that I can get you out to you faster. Now, Carole, can you please tell us a little bit more about Bemensa and how we can find you? Because I'm sure there are many people who are as excited as I am to find out more about your pilot, and then where to find you as well.
Sure. So, well, as you can see, my name, Carole Constant. You can find me on LinkedIn, and the name of our company is Bemensa. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, and on Instagram. And so, what we do is Bemensa. What it's doing is skills profiling for staff, mainly for corporations. That's why the B2B clients. And so, what we do is we have an app where people play games. So instead of asking staff personality tests and psychometric tests, spend whole day answering questions, and we do it over a week, for example, 15 minutes every day, and that way we get a much more clear image of these skills like, well, decision making, problem solving, confidence level, whether you are a risk or not of imposter syndrome, and this will help companies to improve employee satisfaction, because what we do is we matching the skills to the position that they have for internal career promotions. So we have a really good feedback. I'm a bit scared of how good the feedback is. Like, no, it cannot be. Something must go wrong. It cannot be. So we are trying to go very slowly, step by step. And yeah, I'm here working on my pilot, having everything ready, and I'm really grateful for your advice and your support, Nelly. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And you said you're scared about how good the reviews are. I'm not. I honestly, I saw your platform and I played with it last time, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And that was only a few minutes, so I can't wait until I can get my hands on it, because I can see how powerful, and there's a lot of features that you have that so many other personality platforms don't have. And yes, this is why we need to bring you back and really go into details into this, because I think anyone who's interested in skills profiling for their companies, please go online, check out Bemensa, and get on the waiting list before you're gonna have to wait a long time until they bring you on board, because that's how everybody's knocking on Carole's door at the moment. But to
Thank you
anybody
so
else,
much.
thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, you know where you are. I'm the Mary Poppins of startups, and do remember, let's design a happy and productive workplace playground together.